My name is Susan Anderson, and I'm the coordinator for the East Texas Substance Abuse Coalition. So our mission is to prevent youth substance abuse here in East Texas. We focus on 4 substances: alcohol, marijuana, synthetic marijuana, and prescription drug abuse. But even though we focus on all of these substances, our primary area of concern is underage drinking, because it is the most commonly abused substance amongst East Texas teens, and it kills more teenagers than all of those other illicit drugs combined. So we had a really great opportunity to sit down with Dr. Dan Crawford, principal at Robert E. Lee. We're actually partnering with Robert E. Lee this year. They have about 2,600 students on campus, and he had a really good perspective as to why schools should care about prevention.
As principal here at Robert E. Lee, it is a real pleasure to be able to be a part of such a great community. And with that being said, I've been an administrator now for going on 13 years. And I will say, in my work in schools, I've had a few experiences that I've seen that are just so very difficult to deal with. And one of those has to do with prom. Every kid looks forward to prom. That's an exciting time of their high school experience. And as a principal, you care about every one of your students. Whether you're at a 2A school, where I was 4 years ago, or a 6A school like Robert E. Lee, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can for your students. And in one of my prior schools, at prom, we had an issue of some students coming late. And they came in and got off the bus, arrived after the cutoff time to show up, and when I saw those students walk into the venue, we immediately knew that they were under the influence of something. And with making a long story short, we immediately went into prevention mode right there to make sure that we took care of those students, found out what happened, what occurred, because we wanted them safe and sound now that they were in our hands, but we also wanted to research and find out what happened, because they're all underage. They should never be doing that at any school event, especially being high school students. And so we immediately were able to contact parents, talk to them, talk to the students, and figure out what happened. And unfortunately, it was a scenario where parents had provided the alcohol to this group of 19 students. And was it all of the parents that provided the alcohol to those students? No, it was not. It was only a couple of parents that had done this. The majority of the parents had no idea that their students would be consuming alcohol. They just thought they were going with a group of friends on a bus to dinner and then going to prom. So you can imagine the shock and amazement when they hear from Dr. Dan Crawford from the high school going, "Hey, we've got to talk about your child and what they did tonight before prom." They were all very thankful that their children were safe and okay, but obviously the level of concern that they had that their child had taken part in this, boys and girls, but also that how this was able to happen when it was supposed to be such a great event, and here we are in the wee hours of the morning taking kids home and delivering them to their parents in a situation and scenario that should never happen. So that's why, yes, in schools we're charged with teaching children academics, the core areas, extracurriculars, career and technology education, but you know what, there's a whole nother piece of being socially aware of the pressures that they'll face. And I will say I've been blessed in my first 6 months here at Robert E. Lee High School as principal to have the East Texas Substance Abuse Coalition partnering with us. We can't do everything as a school just as teachers, principals, counselors, aides, secretaries. We need the community at large to help us and to educate our youth in other areas. And the coalition has done a great job coming in, giving surveys to all of our students to talk to them about what challenges are you facing in life. Because yes, in the scenario I just shared with you, you have alcohol. They obviously face that. But you have drugs, illegal drugs, prescription drugs. Many of them deal with bullying, some with depression. And all of those things are very difficult for our students to handle and deal with, along with the pressures of school and their everyday life. And the coalition has really armed us, and I use the word armed because they've given us some lessons to use during our advisory and have purposeful conversations with students. There's not enough credence given to the power of communication. And the one-on-one talk or the small group talk to have those difficult conversations with students. Oftentimes in a 46-minute class, you can't talk about substance abuse and the problems they're having because they have to get through that curriculum for the course. So our advisory classes and the curriculum that we've been able to put together in conjunction with the coalition has really met the needs of our students. We're also trying to, I talked about the community at large, talked about the school, but the parents. We need to communicate to our parents and let them know what their children are going through. Sometimes students don't feel comfortable going home and talking to their parents. Some do, and that's great. But in the society we live in today, everybody doesn't go home, sit around the dinner table at 6 o'clock and have that conversation. Our lives are very busy. And in many cases, high school kids' lives are just as busy as the parent lives as well. So we want to communicate to our parents, involve them so that they understand the importance of educating their youth of what can happen to them if they are involved in those risky life behaviors that range from prescription drugs and alcohol to experimenting with other things in life that they just don't need to be participating in. So I can tell you one thing, that at Robert E. Lee, under my leadership as Dr. C at Lee, that we will continue to partnership with the coalition, our parent community, our business community, because I think if we all work together, that we will be able to accomplish our vision one day of reaching all of our students and letting them know the dangers that can hamper them in their life if they participate in behaviors they shouldn't be participating in.